Hey, it's Thursday. How are you? Boa noite for me. Boa tarde, possibly, where you live. I don't think it's bom dia for anyone, but nevertheless, hey, it is Thursday. Feliz Quinta-feira. Happy Friday Eve. I don't even know how to say Happy Friday Eve. I know how to say Happy Friday, but Eve. I gotta ask my Portuguese teacher tomorrow. We have a test, y'all. A test. And I did very well on the last test, but I don't know if I'm going to do so well on this test because I missed a few days because I was back in the States. So I don't know. I don't know. Fingers crossed. And then we go on break. Portuguese class takes a holiday break. I'm actually happy that I signed up in the fall or whatever, fall, winter, because we have the holiday break. So we have like 3 weeks off so I can decompress, get back to my normal routine and taking my naps, all the things that have been put on hold. I just made a nail appointment, uh, my eyebrows for next week, like all the self care stuff. Probably should book a massage. Like it is time to catch up because I've been in it, but we're almost done. Portuguese class ends at the end of January. And so, home stretch. So, hey, for those of you who do not know me, I'm Krishan Wright. I'm the founder of Black Sit Global, the host of the Black Sit Global podcast. If you're a Black person and you're looking to move abroad, I'm your girl. Hey. So glad you're here. It is Thursday. And who was first in the chat? Steven. Hey, boa noite. And Action VJ number 2 today. Hey, how you doing? Hey, Kimmy. Let's say hello to everybody. Kay Renee, Winnie B. What it be, Winnie B? Omoloya. Oh, hey. Pinky's in the house. The ABX girl. How you doing, Double T? Double T in the place to be. Awesome. Good to see you all. It has been a time. What else am I looking forward to? Let's see, the holidays, right? Now that I live in Portugal, it is so festive now to see all of the lights, all of the displays. In the States, I never shopped during the period between, like when it's close to Black Friday, and then I didn't go back into the stores until until all the madness was done. I've been shopping and oh my gosh, like it's so much more peaceful. It's so less stressful. It is not like climb over your baby, beat your mama to try to get stuff. I'm like, oh, this I can do. This I can do. So I'm looking forward to some of the things that I have planned in the next couple weeks. So more to come on that or not. But that's right. The Black Sit Global podcast is back January 6th, 2025. I'll be back in your ears, my dears. Ho, ho, ho. So it is going to be a wondrous time. I am recording like crazy. I'm considering doing a split season, but we'll see. We'll see how it nets out. As I'm going to be taking a very long vacation to Thailand and Vietnam. And so I'm like, maybe I'll do a split season. We'll see. Thomasina's in the house, another one of our channel members. Hello. Hope you made it home well, safely. Hey, Miss P. Susan. Hey. Hey, how you doing, Heather? Patricia's in the house. Hey, KF, how are you? Long time no see. Hey, Tara. Hey, so today's topic, let me take a swig, is all about the real truth about living abroad. So much I talk about moving abroad or why you should leave the States, right? But after you move abroad, you get to like where I am and you're living, right? You're living your day to day life. And that looks very different from the planning process and all of the steps that, we talk about here on this channel, on the podcast, other channels that you might watch. It's a whole thing. So tonight we are going to talk about living abroad. And Evelyn is joining us from Panama City, Panama. Hola, hola. And hey, Pisces Pret, how are you? I'm so glad you're here. So I'm happy. So one of the 12, I talk about the 12 when I moved abroad to Portugal in 2023. There were several of us from Black Global Passport, our private community, our membership, that made the leap at around the same time. So my next guest is one of the 12 and also a very awesome person. He was also a speaker at the Move to Portugal Virtual Summit in 2023 and in 2024. So he has a lot to talk about the process. And so without further ado, I'm going to welcome my homie. Welcome.
Olá, boa noite.
Boa noite.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. Oh, I should have also said my classmate in Portuguese class.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
It's intense. Yeah.
It's intense, but we have each other.
Yes. That helps. That really, truly helps.
Right? We moved to Portugal together. Now we're
Huh?
learning Portuguese together.
Uh-huh.
When the weather warms up, we'll be back to our drinking sangria together. So all the
Yes.
things, all the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for the folks that don't know you as well as I, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and then we'll get into it.
Sure. So I am Malcolm McQuirter, and I'm one of the co-founders of Samana.life. We are a wellness lifestyle relo company here in Lisbon, Portugal, and we deal with the very important but small part of the journey of getting you to Portugal into your home and neighborhood with your lights, hopefully with some furniture, and some other things that you need to begin your life here in Lisbon, Portugal. I've been living here in central Lisbon a little bit over a year and some months, 2, 3 months, something like that, 15 months, 16 months, something like that, and have been working in the relocation space for a little over a year. And I notice a lot of things with folks moving here. I see more apartments than probably the average person, meet more American, sometimes Canadian, but usually American expats than probably the average person, and sort of see their trajectories and kind of how they do, what people do well with and what they struggle with. And like Krishan alluded to in the opening, there's so much momentum and so much involved in getting here that sometimes you lose track of the fact that you actually have to live here. And it's not the same as coming on vacation, even a long vacation, 3 months, 6 months. That's not going to really give you an understanding of some things. If you're not living here, there's certain things you won't have to do even if you're here for a long time, that you'll encounter when you live here. Setting up your own life here is different. Uh, it kind of gives you a little bit of whiplash because in the States, things move much quicker. You get very, very involved in this process of project managing getting out of the US. A lot of these tasks and things that we're doing in the US, you can do concurrently. The United States is set up to be a lot more convenient. There are very few obstacles to spending money, right? So if something's going to get in the way of a consumer being parted from their money, that will be found out very, very quickly and eliminated, right? Anything that's going to keep you from booping the bleep to put the thing in the cart and move quickly out of the line, anything that's going to have you in a line in a store for too long and giving you the opportunity to rethink your purchase or leave because you're frustrated to go somewhere else. Those kinds of things in American culture are targeted and removed as obstacles. That is not true of Portugal per se. So if you get into the mode of getting out of the US, you're project managing, you've got your checklist, you're doing 2 and 3 tasks a day, you're going to work, you are decluttering that home, you are selling the things, you are getting the paperwork and the fingerprints. Sometimes you're doing 2 or 3 things with these things in a day. At some point, you get an email and a letter, you have the visa, you can come here. Now you've got to get yourself here and live here until you get on the new timeline, which is getting that magic residency card. Uh, the thing is, the cadence of the timeline changes drastically once you get here. You're in kind of a frenzied state usually when you're trying to get here and leave the US. Then you get here and you've got a new timeline and you've got new tasks, but the cadence with which you get them done is very, very different. And if you don't understand some of the crucial things that we're going to talk about in the timeline, it can be uncomfortable to be here because things might not be resolved as quickly as you're used to having things resolved in the US, even about things that we think of as being crucial or very, very important, things that would be prioritized in the United States, like water, which is something very, very basic. It can be treated and prioritized very differently here.
Your ability to wash your tail might not be somebody's priority, right? So
Yes.
you just have to understand that. You might be like, look, I don't have water. And they're like, I don't care, right? I got to go. It's 4 o'clock,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Absolutely. So things that even are very, very important, like something like water. I had an issue that happened with the water here. Something that in the United States would have been resolved, certainly like an in-person thing would have resolved it very, very quickly. Um, Water can't be tinkered with in the same way. Anyway, we'll get to that in the utility section. So some of these things you want to know
Yeah, yeah,
before
but
you get here.
we got time. We're gonna pace
Yes.
ourselves. We're gonna pace ourselves. So we're gonna roll it back
Yes.
a little bit because we talked about a lot in the open. And so you talked about the conveniences, right? In that, like in the States, they're more than willing to separate you from your money. Not as much aggression in that regard, living in Europe and Portugal more specifically. So as people start to think about these timelines, like you said, that get missed because you have this like frenetic energy to get out, because they are days away from, I talked about Darth Vader and his homies coming back, and now they're rolling out the red carpet. Like I just saw that Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, donated $1 million to Darth Vader's inauguration, like campaign, parade, whatever the hell he's going to do. So, businesses are coming out and they're supporting. Time made him Person of the Year, second time in a row. So there's a reason why there's a frenzy. But what we want to underscore is once that frenzy comes down, once you start getting off of the things that's propelling you forward and you have to live here, using that energy to try to manage the tasks that Malcolm is going to go through and the steps that you're going to go through and encounter, it's not going to be to your advantage if you bring your Americanness and the hate to offend anybody, hope I'm not, stank to another place because there's a whole cultural shift. And there's, what I talk about ad nauseum on the podcast and on a platform, there's a whole mindset shift. And so people who are not from the States are not going to be as understanding of your frenzied state. And so it's important to use this conversation as an input to help you think about all of the other steps that lay ahead.
Hmm. And some of these things you want to think about before you get here because uh, if they aren't in place or in motion by the time you get here, again, that resolution might be slower. So things like, utilities, if you don't have some of that in motion on some stage of being turned on or resolved, you could get here and not be able to have lights in your own apartment. That certainly happened to me. A lot of these cautionary tales are based on things that I experienced when we first got our apartment here. We weren't living here full time. There was a back and forthness. And one of the first fourths, coming here thinking, okay, well, this is my apartment. I've paid a deposit. I have a lease. My name is on it. I have an address. I have a mailbox and a key. Um, it's mine. I should be able to stay whenever I want. Was very surprised that in planning to just pop over to do some things, I couldn't stay in my own apartment. That was not a
Mm.
possibility. Which, after you've put down deposits and all these things in the United States, that something would be wrong. Like,
It's like I got catfished. I
right?
got hoodwinked and bamboozled all at once.
Yes. And here it was just things about the way that things are and set up here that I was not aware of and had to get resolved and so on and so forth. So, uh, and it's again, the sense of urgency and frenzy isn't there. There's
Mm.
seasonality to some of these things with
Mm.
moving here. If you're moving during certain times of the year, it can be more or less difficult to get things done, including getting a lease during certain times of the year can be more and less difficult to do. There's a lot of
Don't do it in
seasonality.
August.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
and
do
don't.
it in August, folks. I
Yeah,
will save you the trouble.
yeah, and that really kind of extends into the first week or two of September because
Mm.
it doesn't just, everyone doesn't come back on the same day and they turn the lights on like, okay, Portugal's back. It's yeah, it kind of staggers in. Like if you live in an area with lots of Portuguese people and that live kind of more traditionally, the neighborhood restaurants close, and if you look on the windows, in August, September, actually starting in July. Here's when we'll be gone. And it's not, September 1. It's like September 8th ish.
Mais ou menos.
Yeah. And that's a soft opening too. So it's not going to be, they might be open part hours for the first week or so. And then, then because all the employees aren't back either. So,
True.
so if things kind of stagger back in very, very slowly, and
Hmm.
that will also apply to services, that'll apply to the bank. Your landlord might be on vacation until the middle of September. So, um, yeah, there's all kinds of inputs and things. So, as you get closer to your date, if you in particular are looking to be in an unfurnished apartment, start with that. So, if you're moving into an unfurnished apartment, what are you going to sleep on, sit on, eat on when you arrive?
Because you know what? I had to think about that. I was like, oh, I was doing all the stuff, right? All the steps. Plus, I had y'all. And then I was like, oh, what am I going to sleep on? Like, I don't have a paper plate. I don't have a plate. I don't have a utensil. I don't know if that's customary. Like, when you order food for them to bring it, like, sometimes it
Mhm.
is in the States, like all of these things became question marks where in the past I had a frame of reference and I had certainty. Like I literally, before we got on, just ordered an air mattress because I needed one. And in the past, in the States, I know there's air mattresses everywhere. And then the store that had it not too long ago, they're like, oh, we don't have it. And we don't have it online. And so I had to order it somewhere else. And so, again, things that were you had a high degree of certainty from your home country. One of the things that you have to get comfortable with is the uncomfortable, is getting out of
Mhm.
your comfort zone and realizing that you don't have anything to draw from to say,
Mhm.
oh, this is an experience and I know how fast or how slow this process is going to be or how easy or
Mhm.
hard.
I think that's too one of the big adjustments that is hard to put into words, and maybe people haven't said it, or and it's really hard to describe it because it's such an it all depends kind of thing, is that
Mm,
what does it take to actually get done what I want to get done? All of that is
mm.
different here. Things that in the States are a quick pop in, jump on an app, click a thing, you're done. You might have to put half your day aside to get that resolved here.
Yeah, yeah.
Or that might be the only thing that you do for that day. You might have to
Mhm.
put your whole day aside to get this one thing. If it's very, very important and it has to be resolved,
Mhm.
you might have to clear your calendar. And the thing is, until you're here for a while and some other things open up, like the language
Mm.
and getting used to the customs, it's almost impossible to know which is going to be which. Is this a 30-minute
Mm.
thing that I pop over and do and I'm done? Whew. Or is this clear your calendar, take a deep breath, don't have any caffeine, you're going to be
Right.
more, you don't know a lot of times going in which of those things it's going to be. So there's this whole process of just figuring out the figuring out. Um,
Mhm.
and one day it can be exhausting. It can really tax your patience and your resilience in ways that you may not have seen coming, because these can be very little things that you're
Mhm.
not used to having to invest so much time and energy into doing or resolving or even understanding. Uh,
Mm. Mhm.
like I didn't know how
Yeah.
to turn on my stove.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, the stove was yeah, I was remember there was like a knob and I was like, "Well, what does this knob do?"
Uh
Or
huh.
or the dishwasher. No, it wasn't the dishwasher. It was my washing machine.
Hmm.
I bought the what I thought was laundry detergent and it was actually fabric softener. And so I was washing my clothes with fabric softener for like a week and I was like, "Oh, that's not the word."
Uh-huh. I think I might have bought like like something for the floor that I thought was like laundry detergent, and it was
Oh, wow,
like
yeah,
to
yeah.
mop the floor. And I think I before I used it, I was looking at it more closely and was like, wait a minute, that means floor. Hold on, this isn't the right thing. So little
Yes,
things.
because then you like you see a word and then you like look it up and you know if the translation is correct, right?
Right.
And that's a whole nother story. But then you're like, oh, wait a second, and that's when the light bulb goes off. And I look, I laugh at myself all the
Yes.
time. I don't get lost as much as I did, 15 months, now, but in the beginning, oh, every day I was getting lost. I was saying something incorrectly or I would have this like aha moment, and I would just laugh. I would just laugh.
Hmm. You laugh or you will cry. You have to have a sense of humor about it. Because it's ongoing. It takes a while to get used to a lot of these things, and some of them are things that you deal with day to day, like going to the grocery store and not necessarily understanding what you're buying or how you're buying it. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so first, yes, you get here. What are you going to sleep on? What are you going to eat on? What are you going to sit on? Your furniture things, it kind of depends on who you go to. It's a good idea to pad your timeline for that a little bit. Put, I would say, kind of depending, maybe 2 or 3 weeks for that to be resolved before you get here. And with that, I would say put dishes too, like all of that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, basic things to cook in, eat from, drink from, sit on, and sleep on. Give yourself 2 to 3 weeks to get some things in a cart, figure out who's going to be there to receive them, or if you're going to come yourself, if you're on a scouting trip and you already have an apartment, you already have keys, you're in various stages of moving in. Some people kind of stagger their move here, like
Hmm.
we did. So just put 2 to 3 weeks aside for that to get your sleeping, sitting, basic eating situation resolved. Um, the quick and sort of easy answer to that is IKEA. I know it's, people feel da da da. I didn't want to use IKEA at first.
Hmm.
The extreme advantage of using IKEA is that uh, English language customer service, you have
Hmm.
control over delivery windows. That's not as common with other companies that you might go to. And they're pretty consistent and reliable. If something goes wrong, resolution is also fairly easy within a day or so, which is not true of a lot of other places. So maybe for basic things like that you want to look at in IKEA. Also, that the price will be something that's
Hmm.
not so prohibitive. So that's another advantage. You don't have to go with
Yeah.
IKEA. There are other
Mhm.
places, but there will be other lead times.
Yeah,
So
I think IKEA quality, I don't know, maybe it to me is better than the quality of the IKEA furniture in the States.
I think
So I
so.
have several pieces in my apartment that were from IKEA that I had TaskRabbit come, because I don't do anything. TaskRabbit come and assemble, and then everything else I kind of found the vendor that had a decent delivery time. Like you were saying, in the UK, they use Glum
Mhm,
and they're predictable. They give you the notification, they tell you where it's coming. Conforama was another one that was
mhm.
pretty on the money. But you had an interesting story about the piece of furniture that you're sitting on right now.
Oh boy, yeah. So couches are. This is not an IKEA couch. This is a lovely Gattupretu couch. Gattupretu is a brand that's here in Portugal that a lot of us have used for furniture stuff. A little bit nicer than an IKEA. I always say it's kind of like a CB2, like a Crate and Barrel 2.
Yes, that's a
That's like a
great.
good,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, as far as like cost and both styles. So it's a little bit, they have like a range of things. Some of it's more contemporary, some of it can be more traditional, but it's nicer quality kind of things. So Gatsu Pretu was the choice for the couch. So if you go to a Portuguese furniture store, anything that you're looking at as far as a floor model is not immediately available. They will quote you anywhere from 45 to 90-day lead time. Yeah, and that is
Three
all.
months without a couch.
I think we were longer. Um, let's see, so September, October, November, December. Well, yeah, it was longer. It was four and some change.
Wow.
Yeah, so they initially
Wow.
quoted, I want to say it was 45 days. You like that one, that's great. It's 45 days, for that model, so on and so forth. And then somewhere in there, they revised that. So this is a part of the seasonality. We ordered the couch in September, and then we butted up against December. December is a
Mm.
mini August, so
That's true.
things are also slowed down in December for Christmas and Christmas markets and people traveling and doing things with family and prioritizing family time and that kind of thing. So things can slow down a little bit. So we butted up against that, and then it delayed it until almost the end of December, January, something like that. It was like 4 months, a little bit more than that, before we got a couch. So we did not have anywhere to sit in the main sort of living room. We had a dining room table, but nowhere to sit other than the dining room table and the built-in kitchen table with some chairs that were here when we moved in. So things like that, if you need to entertain, or you don't have anything else to sit on, we at least had a dining room table, we at least had a kitchen table, like two places to eat and also work. Um, so we were able to offset it, and it wasn't so horrible. Think about it. If that's going to be important to you, if you're a digital nomad and you have to have somewhere to sit and work, if you don't have a co-working space arranged, all things to think about.
Yes, very true.
Before you get here. So, especially if you're a digital nomad, I would say a couple of things that'll kind of tie into the next thing. So, utilities.
Hmm.
This can be a big one, getting them turned on. I feel like this one's changing a little bit. There's more and more foreigners here, and more English language speaking foreigners, whether they be British or Australian or what have you. English is also the language that most expats speak, even if they're from somewhere else, France, Germany, whatever. English a lot of times tends to be, you know, the other language that people default to that's not Portuguese. So with utilities, more of them will have representatives that speak English now, or we'll have dual language information lines, websites that can translate into pretty good English, like things that you can follow pretty clearly. So some of this is changing in terms of the accessibility with language. The process, though, may still be a little convoluted. You might have a little bit of an easier time resolving it because someone on the other end might more reliably speak English. Um, some of that might depend on the utility company you go to as well. EDP, which is the big one, more reliably will have a person, sometimes
Hmm.
two, in office that will speak English if you have to get stuff resolved. And DESA and some of the other ones, it has kind of depended on time of day and where you go.
And you mentioned, you said utility companies, plural, not company, because most of us, when we come from the States, we're used to, one power company that services a particular part area, maybe two.
Mhm.
But in Portugal or Lisbon specifically, there are several.
Five.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are five power companies. They all have different sort of rates and processes and, bundles and packages, all the things, all a little
Mhm.
bit different billing cycles, um, accessibility, online ease,
Mm.
this ease, all very, very different. Depending, so much of this can depend on what part of town you're in, the building that you're in. It can be very, very specific. It is getting easier to resolve though in English, but still leave some space. Don't assume that because you have a lease or even keys that if you went to your place that you would have water or power. Don't assume that.
Yeah, because how do they know who you are?
Yeah. A lot of times, too, if you either see the apartment or a scout, like I'm out seeing an apartment, there may be power and water that are in the landlord's name. They leave that on so that they can show the place and, people
Mm.
can come and so on and so forth. And then the minute you sign the lease, they turn the power off, in anticipation of you occupying the place.
Mm.
So, because that was the case with this place, I remember distinctly turning on lights and then, wait a minute, what do you mean there's no power? I saw the lights on with my own eyes when I was in the apartment. Oh, yeah, the landlord had the power on to show the place. And then when you signed
Mhm.
the lease, she turned it off.
Yeah.
So,
Or the lights you see may not be the lights that stay when you
also
get there.
that.
Yeah.
That's another thing that might be staged. So the lighting fixtures themselves that are on may also be gone when you move in.
Appliances, like if it's not written,
Yeah.
sorry, y'all. You just have to really think about the fact that you are, like I said, there's a lot of unknown. So you can't take for granted or assume that you're going to have appliances unless you've asked that question when you've done it, or you're working with your scout like Malcolm and he's, knowing that that's, something that's a must have for you and can negotiate those things, because literally everything, including price, is negotiable.
Hmm. Yes, it is. And a lot of that price is dependent on what is already there, or
Hmm.
what you ask to be there before you move in or to be moved out before you move in. Sometimes people want, things swapped out. Maybe it comes with the refrigerator that, you think is ugly or it's too small or whatever. And you say, hey, I want to, I'll pay for it. I want a different one, but can you get rid of this one? I want it gone before I
Hmm.
get there. Ask, ask.
Yeah. And what are the things that, because I know I love the list and I want to get back to the list, and I know there's some questions that we want to answer as well. But what are some of the things that people need to not make a mountain out of a molehill about? Like, there are certain things that, we talked about things that, like stoves that may not come with the unit, or light
Mm.
fixtures or things like that. But then there are also some things that, Americans could be quite particular about. And what are the things that you think that probably need adjusting in terms of mindset and cultural understanding and things like that?
Yeah, those won't necessarily be specific, just to your house. A lot of those
Mhm.
things I think are, just your broader day-to-day life, and they're important. They'll play a factor in this and that. There are cultural things that it's good to be mindful of as you have to interact with people to perhaps resolve some of these things. So with that, I would say that the amount of time that it might take for some of these things to be resolved, it might not be in a day or two or a week.
Mm.
It can be iterative. So you might get a piece of it moved forward, but it's not the whole thing moved forward. Or you might get to a place where understanding and resolution can be a two-tier process here. So you might go in to get something resolved, and what you get resolved as you talk to the person is understanding what went wrong in the first place. That might be the win for the day. Is that, oh, I I see now here in the system someone put in the wrong character, it threw everything off. That's why
Mhm.
they might consider that the win for the day, that they've corrected the error.
Mhm.
That might not mean that the other thing that you wanted done is now done. No, no, no. We fixed what was wrong or the root cause.
Mhm.
You might have to go back to get the thing as an iterative process. You might have to go back in and be like, hi, thank you so much. We fixed the root cause. Yay. But I'm still not getting my mail. Right. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
thank you so much. You fixed this, but it's still not quite done yet. So I
Mhm.
need to do this part. So that mindset, uh,
Mhm.
things might take more time than you think to get them resolved. It might take more interactions. And then one thing that's kind of the opposite. In the States, you don't think of doing something face to face as being the most efficient way to get it done.
Hmm.
Here, that can be true. Apps, online, things like that are not always as reliable. And so don't necessarily count on being able to do it that way to get it done. Some things it will be faster if you just get in front of someone. Um, it can be faster to do it that way. That's it's a huge difference between the States and here, uh, that I see people kind of struggle with. And don't make a mountain out of a molehill of any of that kind of stuff with people. I would say more than anything, it's how you approach it that will very much influence which way it goes. The way that you get things resolved here, or the way that you enter the problem, is not American people, I think, tend to enter it with, I have a problem, here are the facts of my problem, and so here's my expectation around what you're going to do about these things.
Mhm.
Wow, that
Because we're
is,
told that the customer is always right, right? That's been ingrained in the U.S. mindset, and so if
yeah.
you take that and apply it to another country or culture where that is not the edict, right? It's like, oh, so you think you're right just because you brought that to me with an
Yes, or because
attitude?
Yes, or because you're spending money. I think that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
big difference. Money means something different passing through American hands than it did other
Mm,
people. Because you
very
spend
true.
because you
Hmm.
spend money doesn't make you right here. It doesn't. It doesn't even, and the amount doesn't change that either.
Hmm.
$10, $1,000, €10,
Yeah.
€50, 1,000 euros. That doesn't necessarily alter the process to getting it
Mhm.
resolved, the urgency that it occupies for the doer of the task. That doesn't make it more urgent because there's more money attached to it, or maybe not. It's not a given here. And the way that you get it resolved is that you present it as something that you need help resolving, not what they need to do. You
Mhm.
need their help to do this. And if you enter it with that spirit and even say something like that, starting with the language too, don't bark out things in English at people. That's a really great way to get things also started. Learn enough Portuguese to at least be able to say, I don't speak Portuguese well. I'm sorry. People, that little effort to do that will go a long way. Even if you
Mhm.
do it poorly, people appreciate you making the effort and they'll switch over to English to resolve things. So just that little bit of humility goes far. And then presenting whatever it is you want to get done as something that you need help with. This
Mhm.
person is the subject matter expert, and I need your help. Here's what my problem is, and I need your help. Can you help me with this? Like, da da
Mhm.
da 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 da. I need help with this. Is this something that you can help me with? And present it that way, not this is what's wrong, and here's how you what you need to do for me in this transaction, or what I want this to look like. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, not as effective because I think the underlying understanding is that the American culture is very individualistic, right? You're interacting with somebody over the telephone, maybe in person, even in your neighborhood, wherever this location is, that you may never see again,
Mhm.
right? Whereas when you're in a collective culture, even if you don't see that person again, there is a there is a we in this,
Oh yeah.
and so when you are approaching a collective society, which those of us that come from the States, we don't really have a frame of reference, depending on how old you are. It can be a missed opportunity to not kind of have the level of self awareness to say, oh, you know what? I need to dial this back, or I need to be in a position of being open to learning from this
Mm.
experience and this interaction versus making assumptions that, the more money I spend or the fact that I did this, affords me, you know, you should be reprioritizing. I'm going to tell this person versus recognizing that they have a job to do, you have an issue. How do we work together to solve this?
Exactly. That goes a long way. And to your point, the people around you, you're in your building, in your neighborhood, at the grocery store, you do see them over and over and over again, and they recognize you, and there is an acknowledgement
Mm-hmm.
of that, and there's an expectation. And I think that's another important thing, apart from like my list and all these kind of tasky sorts of things. It's really the mindset of
Mm.
the people in your day-to-day life. You are in relationship with them. It doesn't mean that they come to your house on Christmas, or they know your mom, or you cook for them. Not necessarily like that. It's a light relationship, but it is a relationship, and it is
Mm-hmm.
ongoing. And there is an expectation that there are little things that you do that maintain that relationship. One of them is greeting
Mm-hmm.
people by time of day. It's a little
Oh,
thing,
yes.
but it's a little thing, but not a little thing, right? Like,
I had a nightmare the other night. I didn't even tell you this. That I had this dream that in the dream I didn't say like "boa tarde" to someone, and I just went blah 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 blah, and they were like, and then I just walked in, and they were like, "Oh my god, how rude is she?" This was in my dream. It's like, oh my gosh.
the Portuguese anxiety dream. Yeah.
Right? I was like, oh no, they're permeating my dream space. But it's true. Like you
Ooh.
do that because like yesterday is a great example. Bailey has had this issue. She had surgery. It's been resolved, but she had her last, follow up yesterday. And well, I thought it was yesterday because I only have my appointments on Wednesdays because we don't have class on Wednesdays. And when I got there, I'm like, oh, but and they're like, Bailey? As soon as she walks in, because, everybody knows Bailey. And they're like, Bailey? No, I mean, yeah. And I'm like, tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, no. Wait, oye. No, no, no. I'm mean, yeah. And I'm like, oh. And then I realized, right? Uh, right? Quarta feira, quinta feira. Right? It's like, ooh, did I say the wrong day? Did like, and so he looks and he's like, and then he goes back, talks to the vet. She's like, I'll see you. Like, you just got to give me a few minutes. And she saw Bailey and that was it. But any place else? Mm-mm. Right? But the fact that they know me, I'm always greeting. They know I'm American. They know I'm an
Mhm.
English speaker. Um, but it's the attitude, right? Like I didn't go in like, oh my gosh, how did you? I don't know. Some clearly there was a miscommunication. Could have been me, most likely.
Mhm.
It could have been them. But the fact that they were working with me meant a lot.
Yes, and that kind of thing extends to kind of all the things that you do on a regular basis. The restaurant, your neighborhood restaurant that you eat in, it's The post office, if you go to the post office a lot, or just whatever it is that you do frequently, the grocery store that you go to that has your favorite thing and that's why you go there, da da da. Those people see you and they recognize you, and it makes a difference if you bon dia, just say a little something to them just very quickly and then move on. You don't have to stay engaged all day long with it, but just taking the time and leaving the space for the response too is also important. Uh-oh, am I not audible? I can't hear you. Can you hear me still? I can't hear you suddenly.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I
Okay,
can
but
hear
I
you.
can't hear you.
Huh.
I can't hear you.
I couldn't hear you
That's
before.
okay. I know. I don't know. I think it just went away. Oh, you know
Are
what?
you,
Maybe my headphones died. That's probably
oh,
what it was. Hang on. Y'all talk to Malcolm. I'll be back.
let's see. Can I see if there's questions? I don't know if there's any questions that folks have. Let's see. Let me turn on my chat. No. Oh, here we go. We hear both of you. Okay. Question. Okay. If an apartment has a mold issue, is the landlord willing to address the issue? Usually, it kind of depends. Sometimes the mold it's known, and the way that they sort of resolve it might be that they recommend some cleaning supplies to you or something like that. Some of that might depend. Is it mold that's there, before you moved in and you're seeing it and asking them to resolve it? Or is it mold that, pops up because it's summer and it's more humid? I guess some of that kind of depends.
All right, my audio issue is resolved. Yay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Um, so I turned off the questions now, so you'll have
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Let's go back through the questions. I saw you answered Greta's.
Yeah.
Um, we talked to. Do we do this one?
Optimum time to move. Good question. I would say right in between. So after the Christmas stuff in January, so like mid-January when that's all kind of behind us and things are slowly getting back to normal, up through March, April. So right before the high season, and things just get more crowded, because that kind of impacts moving here because you're just dealing with crowds of people to do all kinds of things, including get flights and all of that. So in between the high seasons. So and then again in the fall, like that window mid-September through like mid-November is another. Those two windows are good.
Uh,
Oops.
let's see. KF. Why couldn't you get in your apartment?
Okay, I'm going to give you the really quick version. So it wasn't that I couldn't get in. Again, having keys and all of that, knowing where it was, and that being able to get into the building, it wasn't that I couldn't do something like that. It
Mhm.
was not being able to stay here. So there were a few things that were going on. Number one, the utilities were not turned on. So they were on for staging purposes for us to be able to come in and just look at the place. So when we signed the lease, the landlord turned them off. That was something I was not aware of until I moved here. So that was number one. Then the second thing with that is it took a while to get them on. Also, the lighting fixtures were also part of the staging. So there were just wires hanging out of the ceiling in pretty much every room in the house. So there was concern about turning on the power with all of the open wires because they don't when they took out the fixtures, they didn't cap the wires like in the U.S. I don't think that's illegal
Yeah.
to do,
Yeah.
like to
Yeah.
have open wires, like yeah, you'd have to cap them or something. So the wires were not even capped. So there was a concern with if you turn the power on, like
Yeah. And if
where's it
there had a
going?
higher voltage, I would be nervous. I would have been nervous.
So there was that, and then the same with the water. The water was
Mm.
similarly not on. Internet was a whole other thing. That took a really long time to resolve the internet, cable, phone, eSIM, shenanigan, that took a really, really, really long time. So it wasn't that I couldn't be here. It was just the circumstance under which I would have been here, a month with no power and water, like it would have been
Mhm.
squatting. Like, so
Yeah. Stephen asked, how responsible is the National Emergency Response System since global warming can impact some areas and countries more than others? Great question.
that's a really good question.
Yeah.
So recently, actually, this just kind of came up recently. So just recently, they had the I don't know what you call, like, the registration for
Yeah.
the meeting point. So in Lisbon, and maybe this is true of other cities in Portugal, so other people who are here in other cities or who might know this can sound off, but in Lisbon, there are designated governmental meeting spots in case of a national disaster. Each sort of fricazia or area has them designated. So for at least one of them for this area is the Amoreiras Park, like right up the street, that the Jardim Amoreiras is a designated meeting point. So if you're registered in this system, I don't know quite how to explain it. You register your phone number in the system. Whenever something happens, you get a text message that basically, even little things like the weather change recently, like, hey, it's going to be colder than normal in Lisbon for the following days. Expect the temperatures to be between here and here, and that is colder than is normal. Prepare yourself, and that's not really like a disaster. It's just, well, I'm a little bit of a cold snap, and it's a little uncomfortable, but so the system is set up to warn you at very low levels of disturbance, if that
Hmm.
answers your question.
And it is quite cold. I had to put my heavy jacket on for the first time, like all day in 15 months. And I was like, what in the frig is this? Like, this cannot be possible. Portugal, I need palm trees and to bring my plants
Yeah,
in. Anya
yeah,
asked, how long did it take for you to acclimate?
that is ongoing.
Good
There
answer.
There are, yeah, there's layers of that. So the first sort of, I'll give you my trajectory thus far, and then we can talk about it in another year, and I'll be like, oh, and then there's this, and this. So right now, as of right now, I would say that it goes kind of like this. The first few months is decompression. You have to learn how to be here. Things move so much more slowly, and people are so different in the way that they sort of interact and move and do things. It's 3 months of just getting used to the sound of the language. At first,
Mhm.
it's not words, you only hear sound. And because it's such a sibilant language, it all sounds like sh. Like everything just sounds like sh, 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 with ja and la kind of sprinkled in.
Mhm.
That goes on for some months. Then slowly words start to emerge from that, and meanings and sentences. So
You're like, is that a word?
I felt like it was 4 months before I could hear words. I just didn't.
Yeah, now I can hear words. Like
Mhm.
before it was like shh,
Yeah.
right? Like
So
a
there's
white noise machine,
yes, yeah,
right? And then it was just like, oh, wait, that's a word. And that's another word.
hmm and I know what it means. Yeah,
Yes, like I can hear something and be like, oh, that's a commercial for something. And then I look and I'm like, oh, I'm right. Like, but before it was, I don't know what the hell that is. It's just
yeah.
noise.
So there's getting used to the language. That's like an ongoing adjustment. There's getting used to customs. Like people do things differently here. Um, People behave and say and do things differently than Americans. Then so there's that, getting used to how you do things. Like when you walk into a place, you better take that saying. Yeah, I don't care if there's one person ahead of you or no people. You take a ticket.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
take the ticket.
I've been there.
Take the ticket. Even if there's take the ticket, because
I've
if
done
you don't
that
put
when
them
I get
on,
the car. It was like, oh, nobody's there but me, and I take my senya, and I'm like, oh, bon dia, come. I'm like, you gonna
yes,
wave me on because I want to hear. You don't have your ticket, but
exactly.
where were we? Oh, it was with Nomad Noir this summer, and we went to shop. And it was just us. Well, it was a big store, but she wanted to get something. And they were like, "Where's your ticket?" And I know Marguerite was in the comments. And I don't know if she's still on, but that happened to her when she was trying to get something done, I think at CTT at the post office.
Uh-huh.
And she was like the only person first when they opened, like, but where's your ticket? It's like, but it's just me. But where's your ticket? Don't throw off our numbering system now.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't. So there's little things like that. Then it takes a while to get used to that. And then you feel like, okay, I
Yeah.
can like, I know to take my ticket into it's iterative. Right now, the acclimation, the next level. So you hit like a comfortable cruising altitude for a while. You're like, I'm doing
Mhm.
my things. I'm taking my ticket. I'm in line at the grocery store. I'm ordering my food. I'm getting the right doza. I'm getting the meia doza, not the full thing. That takes a while. Then you hit a comfortable cruising altitude, you're living your life and you feel very comfortable, and then you start to really understand the language. Then
Mhm.
you can really understand, like, when you're being spoken near and not to. That's a whole transition. I
Mhm.
understand things when people are not talking to me now. I understand things on TV
Mhm.
or the radio when I'm not paying attention. If it's in the background, if the TV's on, I understand what's being said without focusing on it. That opens up a whole new world, because then when you understand what people are saying, then you understand what people are saying about you. And then you start to realize all the ways in which you've been doing things wrong that you thought were right,
Mhm.
because you hear someone say like, hey, 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 hey. And you're like, wait, oh, they're
Oh
talking
yeah,
to
oh
me. Yeah, you're like,
yeah.
wait, they're talking to me.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
oh, yeah. Or how many times did that happen and I didn't understand it and now I do? Or you hear people talk about other people, someone being like, oh
True.
my God, that effing American person just, but that, and you're like, oh my God,
Or
like,
the times when you want to play it off like you don't understand what they're saying. Because like I was at the what was it? I was at the metro and this woman she wanted me to scan mine so we could go together.
oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, and she was junto, junto. And I was like, oh, fala português. I'm like, desculpa, you don't falo português, eu não falo English. Oh, oh. Junta, junta. And I was like, no. And yeah, I knew what the hell you asked me, but I'm not going to tell you. And the fact that I did tell you all that in Portuguese should have told you I was lying.
Exactly. It's just like, wow, really? Huh?
No, you're not going to get me in trouble. I ain't getting deported because I let your butt in here.
Exactly. And that happens a lot, actually. Yeah, so there's times where it can be convenient to suddenly not speak, So I don't know. That's where I'm at right now, is that this whole new thing is opened up because I can understand like more of what's being said around me. So yeah.
Mhm, mhm. And oh, we have Tanya. I met her at the airport when I was flying when I arrived back the other week,
Ah,
and she recognized me at the airport. First thing off the plane, no makeup, no nothing. A interaction, A plus interaction. So good for you to join in the chat. And I see Stephanie and Adelia in the chat. Hey, hey, hey. Let's see. CK, I will be there in June for a month. Staying at Avenidas Novus is a strategy. Well, I would say strategy, you would want to set up a consult with Mr. Malcolm.
yeah. Yeah. We can talk through what that might look like. Because Avenida Novas that's a broad sweep of the city. It can be counted in Avenida Novas. So um yeah, we'd have to talk about like kind of more specifically where and what that is.
Yeah, yeah. But definitely reach out to Malcolm.
Yeah.
Reach out to Malcolm. Tara said, open wires and no fixtures doesn't sound legal, but then again, in Germany, they take out the whole kitchen. Oh, I guess I'll never move into Germany then. Right? Because people be watching House Hunters International and they're like, oh, or these make it videos and they're like, oh, yay. And then they come in like, what in the world?
Wow, good
Um,
to know, Tara. Uh,
CK, did you stay in an Airbnb hotel until your apartment was habitable to your standards?
that's
How
exactly it.
long?
Well, so there's a couple of versions of this. So we like co-moved together. I think Krishan did a thing about like co-living. We're like one of the co-living people. So and like we had the apartment for quite some time before we were all co-living together. So one of the co-livers, one of the roommates, was coming over for a month, and this is how we uncovered one layer of this stuff. Is that
Mm.
she's like, oh, well, I'm gonna pop over and stay in the place and do something. And then we were kind of told like, wait, when are you popping? Because you will be popping into, you know, a wire hanging, furnitureless, no power, no water place. So yeah, she stayed in an Airbnb for that month while we kind of started to get some of the stuff resolved. And then when I moved here for good, when we in the graduating class of Black's graduating class of 24. Some of it still wasn't done, and we did stay in a hotel like in Saldana until we got it all done. So, yep, that's exactly what we did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Carol wants to know, are there questions we should ask when hunting for a rental that people may not think about?
Everything we just said, like, are these lights going to be here? Do I need to put these in? All that
Hmm.
stuff. But anything what I would say for Carol, like how you'd really want to prioritize that is whatever it is that you absolutely positively need to have to work or to live, you know, like things to sit on, eat from, da 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 da. Prioritize that if any of that is connected to the rental. That's
Hmm.
what I would prioritize.
Stephen asks, is it better to have a car when you're going to different cities or public transportation? Good question.
That's maybe it depends on where you're going, and depends on you. I would say Krishan's probably done a little bit more of both of these kinds of travel
Yeah.
inside Portugal than I have. So I have never personally driven. I've been in cars with people driving, and I have not taken the trains and buses quite as extensively as Krishan has. I find it all to be pretty good. Like the public transit in between cities is quite good, like
Yeah.
bus or train is
Mhm.
good. It's very affordable. The trains like to strike. You gotta have to
Oh, yes.
watch out for that. They love a
Morning
strike.
strikes, evening
Yes.
strikes, all day strike. Like, it's like, oh, we're taking the morning off. Oh, you need to get to school. Oh,
It's
you
like,
want to get to work. Well, I'm not working, so therefore you're not working.
yeah,
That's how
yeah,
that works. Okay.
absolutely. So that's maybe the only caveat is that if you're using the transit is good when they're not striking. It's
Hmm.
very good. It's clean. It's efficient. It's affordable. The trains have like nice snack cars and that kind of thing. So that's really really great. Just watch out for the strikes. Renting cars, the prices can be all over the place with
Yes.
that.
The other day when I went to get this rental, which I wound up extending it, I think I returned it today. So I had it for a week and a day. It's the longest I've had a rental. And I got spoiled. I was like, oh shit, don't tell me about to get me a car. I drive the car to the metro and then get on. Still take it to metro to school because I didn't want to drive into the city. But I was like, oh. And then when I get off the train, the car was right there. And I'm like, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so great. Drove up to the Silver Coast for the weekend, came back. And literally, when I went to look at the reservation, it was last Tuesday. I had just got back. If I had gotten an automatic, it would have been €3 and 27 cents for the day. And I was like, am I reading this right? And then, right. But I knew I was going to do a lot of driving this time because I barely had to go to the vet. I had some other stuff to do. And, I like to do all the errands with heavy things during that
Mhm.
time. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I can do some shopping, get all this stuff done. And so I'm like, I need an automatic. And it wound up being, before I extended it for 4 days, it was like €66. And mind you, I had just come off of renting a vehicle in the States for four
Mhm.
days and it was $330. And I was like, oh hell. And then when I wanted to extend it to a week another 4 days, it wound up being like 80 for 4 days. And I was like, oh, like that's why I don't want to buy a car because I don't have to deal with the maintenance. I don't have
Mhm.
to do, the oil changes. I don't have to worry about anything, right? Just put some gas in it, gave it back. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I like
Good.
no stress. I like no stress. So I will be forever renting a car.
Yeah.
But public transportation is fine. And then we have, Uber
Oh yeah.
and Bolt.
And
And
both.
so you don't necessarily need a car.
No.
Um,
If you live in central Lisbon, it might be nice to have a car to get out of the city, but parking in central Lisbon is a pain. Unless you know,
Mhm.
if you register, you can get like the district, like for your neighborhood. You have to go to the junta and register your car, and da da da. And you can get a parking sticker for your neighborhood. But then if you go to another neighborhood to visit someone, you're not going to have that. It can be a hassle.
Yeah, but that thankfully, I mean, I've been blessed. I didn't get a ticket. I was like, maybe it's the holidays. I don't know, but I snuck that car over to Encarnação,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, it was. And me, I don't know, but the whole time I was parked. Well, when I would get on the metro,
Hmm.
but here I have I have my own parking spot.
Hmm.
Um, does the tenant add AC if apartment is lacking, or would the owner add it to accommodate the renter? Oh, that's a good question.
So, to get the air conditioning units here, it's not like this like central air in the States. It's like these wall mounted kind of units that come
Yeah.
out. You can kind of see the corner of it like
Hmm.
behind me, but they're like these wall mounted units. Are a little bit high on the wall. It's about between like 5 and 6 and some change €100 to get one of them installed, like in a room. Um, that really will depend on your landlord. That's a good thing to ask. If
Hmm.
you don't have, most places have them in a certain kind of building. There's buildings that are more towards the center of the city that might not have air conditioning, like in Ariero. A lot of those buildings don't have air conditioning. Ask, ask.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, it's not. It's Europe. So I remember when I was seeing Marsha, who was on season one of the podcast, and I
Mhm,
stayed at her flat in 2019. She didn't have AC,
mhm,
right? It's Europe. And so in the older places, it's not as common, or they'll
mhm.
have more like almost like a radiator versus, when it's been more modernized, you'll see the units like Malcolm has. I have one above me. I prefer those. I have remotes
Yeah.
in every room. I,
Hmm.
point the remotes, all the things. But I think as climate change continues to impact us, you're going to see more people install them, where in the past they wouldn't, because now we're all being impacted.
Yeah.
Greta asks, this one's for me. Yes, I do with my American license. I have no intention of getting a license in
Oh boy. Yeah.
Portugal until it's like absolutely necessary. Although when I went out yesterday, because I washed my purse and I was rushing, so I took everything out, and the housekeeper was here, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta take Bailey to the vet." And then I go over. It's only a 10-minute ride. I have to go over the circle,
Hmm.
and there were like, yeah, it was 8 police officers in the circle, like out of their vehicles, like, because they were doing like a check.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh. And it was at that moment that I realized that I left without my wallet. And so I had no ID, no nothing. And then I was like, oh shit, how am I going to pay for the vet? And then, but I had my card and my phone, my mobile wallet. I was like, thank God. I was like, oh my gosh, how did I do that? Right. But yeah, they would have been like, ma'am, I have no resident
Oh
ID,
my god. Yeah.
no nothing, no driver's license. I'm just riding around in this Pujo. It's like, really? I don't even know enough Portuguese to explain that to somebody. I was
Yeah.
like, oh Lord, please just let me get home without these people coming after me.
You do
Um,
actually. We have done. We do know how to set. We've learned all those things. I think.
yeah, I think
It's
when you're in a crisis, words come to you.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yes.
would just be like, oh, scoop, scoop.
That's always a good one to come
Right?
out.
Give them the doe-eyed look and be like, um, let's see. Oh yeah, so Evelyn was saying you need a Senna in
In
Panama as
Panama too.
well.
Oh, they have the sign on, so it might be a last.
Oh man. Let's see. I think one last question, and then we're gonna end it here. I think. Yeah. End it in terms of questions, and then we'll get to the rest of Malcolm's list. Um, What neighborhoods do you live in, and why do you like it? Pros and cons. You want to go first?
Yeah, so I live in the center of the city. So it's Santo Antonio Freguesia. That's like the government name for, for the neighborhood. But then the area that we're in, some people call it Bairro Azul. Some people call this as part of Avenida Novas, where I am. It's the center of the city. Why do I like it? I like it because it's central. It's really easy to get around, so the convenience. But I like it because there's no reason to be here. It's
Mm.
there's no tourists. The tourists go, down the street to some of the tourist inns are pretty close by if you want to go to them. But most of the people who live in the neighborhood are either Portuguese or even the foreigners, like in the other foreigners in this building all speak Portuguese in the public areas.
Mm.
Um, like there's people that I found out later. I don't think she still lives here, but there was an American woman that we were just kind of exchanging Portuguese because that's just kind of what you do in this neighborhood. Not a
Mhm.
lot of tourists, so it has the best of everything without the worst of it.
Great. Yeah. And I'm in Portello by the airport. So one of the reasons why I love it is the airport's 6 minutes from my front door to the airport. And I'm not in the city. No tourists, so that means I have to speak Portuguese every time I come out my front door, which is what I like. And so it's quiet. I like the energy of the city when I need it and want it. And then when I don't, I have my quiet space at home because I don't know why y'all don't believe I'm an introvert, but I'm an introvert. So I need to have my time to plug in my own personal battery and get myself recharged. So that is why I like where I live. Okay, so is there anything on your list that we have not covered that you think we need to share with the audience?
We kind of talked about it a little bit. I would just say
Mhm.
internet, phone, technology stuff. Definitely have, if you're a digital nomad, or even if you just need to have the internet for something more than just, kind of updating Instagram or something where you feel like, okay, I have to have this to be in touch with family or whatever the thing, make a plan B for yourself. Plan to have
Mm,
pocket Wi Fi or some alternate source for that for yourself for longer than you might think you need it. So when we came, we all had our own individual like pocket Wi-Fi accounts. So you can, they're little boxes like this. You can throw it in a backpack, and you have 5 bar Wi-Fi everywhere you go. Plan to have one of those for a while. I did when we first moved here. I think I did 2 months, like initially, and I thought, oh, this is excessive. I'll end up turning this thing in early. I extended it for another month. It took three
mm,
months to get all of the tech internet stuff fully resolved, and I really needed it at that time. At that time, I was nomading, and I was doing consulting work in the States, so I had to have reliable internet. I'm so glad I did that because to get everything resolved in house to be able to work from home took about that 3 months. So that'd be
mhm.
my final tip that
Yeah,
people might
yeah.
be thinking about.
Think about it, get a fixer if you need, or employ the
Yeah,
services of someone like Malcolm, because it just if you want a soft landing or a softer landing for your
yeah,
soft landing, I think that having people that can do these things for you is to your advantage. Like I have said repeatedly, I have outsourced the majority of my life. I do very little, but show up because that's what I wanted to do. And so I don't want to ride the struggle bus anymore. I gave up my bus pass, my lifetime bus.
yeah.
Action BJ is giving you a shout out. Yay! Malcolm helped me find my apartment. I could not recommend him more. Totally smooth process. Yay!
Thank you,
Awesome.
BJ.
Yes, yes. We have some Malcolm fans in the audience, and I know some of our Blacks at Global Passport members are in the chat as well, and they are giving you your flowers, sir.
Thank you. I love all you guys very much. You guys have been a huge part of this ongoing journey and why I'm here, really. I mean, Krishan who got me on a plane.
I did do that, didn't
You
I?
absolutely. I always say, I said it before, I'll say it again. You and Stephanie Perry, I blame the two of you so much.
All right. And meanwhile, Stephanie's in the chat. So look.
I blame you and
Right.
Miss
And
Perry.
Pinky said, I'm channeling Stephanie. Yes. Yes, I am. Proud to do so. Awesome. Well, thank you, Malcolm, for jumping on here tonight, giving the people the good cheer. Thank you, Steph. I just booked my ticket for my room in where Vietnam. I was like, I know I'm flying into Thailand, but I'm like, no, Vietnam. I did tonight.
Awesome.
So yes, so that is now officially booked. So we'll be there with the Exodus Squad,
That's awesome.
and yes, oh yes.
Oh, yeah.
You want to put yours in the chat to
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, because I don't know if you can grab the main chat. If you would have put it to my chat, I'll pop it in there.
Okay.
And Marguerite is in the chat too.
Hi, Marguerite. She is
Yeah,
in the graduating class of
yes, the 12, the original
2024.
12.
All right. That
All right, so
is,
I'm gonna.
oops, no, that is misspelled.
Okay, I'll wait for you to put the other
Let
one.
me, yeah. I am doing this on my iPad and
Oh, no
not
worries, no worries.
laptop.
It
Okay,
is
please
all
do
good.
not autocorrect me. Okay, autocorrect, leave it alone. There we go. All
All
right,
right. Okay,
that's
great.
me.
On IG.
And on IG, it's just my name, Malcolm underscore MCQ.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There it is. And you can reach out to Malcolm and work with him. Right?
Yes, would
Yay.
love it. All right, thanks for
Yay.
having me on,
All
Krishan.
right. Hey, my pleasure, my friend. I'll see you tomorrow in class. Be ready to study because we got a test tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. I will see you next Thursday. Thanks for rocking with us on
Yes,
another
chat
Thursday
buddy.
night.